I was diagnosed with PTSD my junior year in high school.
The thing that most lingered, was the feeling of, my skin, crawling whenever he would touch me.
I'm always in pain. My memory's basically shot.
It hit me, immediately, that night, just...
They really don't teach you much else about PTSD until after you're out.
I would say that it is a difficult environment for the student to work in if they don't have the support.
I, on average, get 2 hours sleep a night, and that's for a good week.
Kind of set me through a loop because PTSD is something I had heard about, but I'd only heard about it in veterans or people who had been through serious major disasters, not in someone who had gone through what I went through. So. At the age of 4, I was being sexually molested by my stepfather. And it continued from the age of 4 to the age of 16 with short spurts where it wasn't happening. It just depended on what we were doing, what was going on. And so for years, I blocked out all of my memories. I don't remember anything from the 4th grade or before. It's all very blurry and very blank, only snippets of things that I don't even know are real. I was actually hospitalized because I was suicidal in 7th grade. I was hospitalized for a week. And as soon as I came home, the abuse started again right after I got out. So sometimes when I close my eyes, I can see his face or I can hear his voice, or I just can't cope. I can't cope with that. It continued through, like I said, middle school and high school, and stopped when I turned 16 because my mom divorced him and we moved away. But I'm still very passionate in my belief. I'm like I said, I pray every night. I believe that God is my savior and all that stuff. And I guess that was something that I turned to when I was younger, because I remember, this is actually kind of sad. My aunt Carol, my dad's sister, gave me a porcelain angel, and I can briefly remember it sitting by my bed when all of this would go on, and I would just look at it and try to forget about it, and I would ask, I kind of felt that it was my guardian angel, something for some reason that was gonna help me.
At first, the first few times, it would just kind of touch me in places. And I would just kind of push him back and push him off and walk out. Of course, I'm a little white girl, and he was a bigger, stronger man, and that didn't work eventually. So then it turned into rape. That continued until October of my first semester at Longwood, and then one day, I didn't tell anyone that it was happening or anything. I just kind of pushed it aside, whatever, it doesn't matter.
There was a lot of things that happened in Afghanistan. IED is an improvised explosive device. Basically, it's like a homemade mine would be, or some form of that kind of thing. Easiest way to describe it. The second vehicle hit it, and luckily, they were just shooken up. It didn't penetrate the hull of the vehicle or anything. We had what's called a mine roller. Essentially, it's a set of wheels about 15 feet in front of the vehicle, which, great, it hits basically everything. And so it destroyed that, which that's the purpose of it. So we were perfectly okay with that. But it definitely, we all froze. There was buildings around us. Attacks can come from anywhere. It was just something I wouldn't like to go through again. Because they teach you, if you get hit by an IED, expect an attack, expect other IEDs, something else is gonna happen.
I've been driving the truck around, and there was a road that I was going down. I knew that a creek normally went over it, but it was normally only 2 inches deep. and it was Christmas Eve morning. It was raining. And so I get to the part where the creek is, and I was like, oh, it's not that bad. It's a little swollen, but I can make it. I'm in this big old truck. It didn't work out that way. I get about halfway across, and it picks the tail of the truck up and starts taking me like down this, what's now a river, like backwards. The truck then turns like sideways, so I'm going like this way down the creek, and it starts rocking, and I'm thinking it's gonna flip, and I just started praying because there's literally like nothing else. But it finally came up against a tree, and it stopped the truck, and I like cranked the window down on the passenger side and swung into the bed of the truck, which was also at this point sinking. I just kind of stood there for a minute like, oh great, now what? And there was the tree that stopped it. It was like a 6-foot jump. It was crazy, insane. Like I didn't think I was gonna make the jump at all. And so I got on like the side of the bed and jumped to the tree and then crawled my way to the shore. And when I got to the shore, the truck went like completely under. Like they couldn't find it for a couple hours. Like it was done. It was a couple hours before the top of the truck even surfaced. So as far as like how I was feeling, completely like distraught, and I really thought I was gonna die like while I was in the truck. So just kind of standing there looking at the creek because the truck was gone, realizing I almost just died.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, so PTSD is post-trauma, so it's after you become stressed. Because of the different triggers that are going on. And it's a disorder, and there's no medication for it, and that's why it's not truly a disease, it's a disorder, because it's really about the way you process, the way you think, and it's, of course, after the events. It's a lot of brain work, it's a lot of understanding your senses in your body, and your nervous system, and all of that, so it's not just that person's being traumatized and they're acting this way. It's a lot deeper. There's so much that we can learn from what our bodies really go through, and I think that that's what's going on and why PTSD and trauma are becoming more prevalent in our everyday world, is because they're starting to do the research to realize this has been going on for a very long time, and now we have a name for it, and now we have treatment for it.
Depression, anxiety, lack of sleep, nightmares, flashbacks, the fear of being too close to someone, like personal space, became a big issue.
I don't remember most of my life before I joined the military. I'm not sure if that's because of PTSD or what.
It's a protective factor. Your body does things to protect you from going through any pain or any harm. So somehow or another, their brain was able to shut that memory out. But your senses are on all the time. And so if it was the smell of mom's perfume, for example, it doesn't connect it back to the memory, but the body didn't forget what that smell did at that time. So they might have a hard time recalling it, because if they went back to it, it's going to be difficult for them to come back out of it. So it's a protective way that your body shuts out that memory to keep you safe.
I was hyper aware of every single thing that was going on around me, like especially like even when I was in groups of people, but especially by myself if I was walking like back to my house or whatever from campus, like I was like always hyper aware of everything that was going on.
When I first got back, driving a car was absolutely terrifying. I've since then calmed some, but I still notice every little thing on the road, little pieces of trash that you might not even think about. You know, to me, that's a potential trigger.
What happens is when you're triggered later on, all those symptoms come back because your brain remembers what it was that happened in the past. But you might be wondering, why am I reacting this way? And that's usually what brings them into counseling. And so we work on it so we can tell a new story and disconnect the negative reactions to that.
It affects my schoolwork because like there will be days where I just want to lay in bed and cry all day because of it. Like I don't have, and I can't oftentimes give an explanation as to why I feel the way I do. It's just something that I've lived with my entire life that I have dealt with every day. And anxiety will cause me to have panic attacks in class, over schoolwork, over tests. I lose sleep at night because of the nightmares, so I go to class tired and unable to focus. And so that makes it just 10 times harder if I'm only running on 3 hours of sleep, and it makes it really hard to focus in class. So definitely, or sit down and do homework because I have a million other things going on in my head because of the anxiety.
I skipped a couple days, probably 2 or 3, which when you're skipping class is such a huge deal because you miss all of that. My biggest issue was focusing on schoolwork, focusing on homework, what the teacher was saying, because my brain was, I could sit in a 90-minute class and not hear a word the professor said. But what I really just had to do was do everything I could, whether that be grounding, whether that be just trying to focus on one thing. Like, I could focus on a specific thing in the classroom. Like, if there was a poster up, I could just look at the poster and put all of my focus there. Just anything to kind of bring me back to where I am, and try not to think about it so much. And then doing that kind of quieted like all the stuff going on inside my head.
It was a little difficult because it was so emotionally draining. And then, like, I would go to class in the morning and then have to go to my counselor that afternoon, so I'd be thinking about the process that I would have to go through and forcing myself to think about it. So it was a little like distracting in class, and it was just emotionally draining, which affected everything. There was one professor that I got close with, and eventually, like, I sat in her office one night until like 9 o'clock and pretty much like cried and like told her my entire life.
You know, if I needed to go in to talk to a professor, yeah, they're always there. The chemistry department, really great professors about that. They help you. I mean, they've been there late helping students. They sacrifice a lot of their personal time to help students, and so if I ever needed help, they were there. My first 2 years here, it was hard getting used to college life, and then I became an RA. RA life was a lot more stressful, so it kind of started building up, and then I thought I could handle it. Apparently I couldn't, and last semester I just kind of went crazy. So I stopped going to class about halfway through the semester and just literally did nothing for like a month and a half. And so I had to take a semester off. I do plan on coming back next semester, hopefully. Assuming they let me back in, I will be coming back here next semester.
When a child or an adult is trying to re-enter school or back to work and they haven't really had any help, the issues are, I'm still thinking about all of that, so I can't focus on it. What I notice that a lot of kids do is they might cut it off, and they might just focus on their work and stay after school and go to the library because it distracts them from everything. And then they go home and do whatever they have to deal with. But they stay out as long as they can and throw themselves into their work. And the other side of that is they stay out as late as they can, and they have a lot of the negative coping skills. And they find a gang, for example, to be part of their family because they can feel included, or they might find drugs or even sex because at that moment it helps them to forget that they have to go back home. The main issue for anybody who's experienced any trauma with sexual abuse or not would be how do I keep myself safe, but then how can I reconnect with the world? And that would be the focus of the treatment, of establishing the safety, establishing the routine of whatever coping skills they can incorporate, and then slowly reintegrating back into their routine in their lives instead of always avoiding whatever it is that they feel that's going to trigger them. When they're able to say, I was able to do this today and it didn't bother me. I went down that street where I had that car accident and I wasn't bothered and I was able to make it through. Then that's showing that growth, that post-traumatic growth. And it says, okay, you know, we're nearing the end of treatment. And then we taper back. So, okay, I want you to continue to do all of your coping mechanisms, continue to go through everything, come back in 2 weeks. You have to make sure that they are okay when they're home, that they have ways of calming themselves down, that they are in a normal routine, and we call that resourcing. So exercising, eating right, sleeping right. If it's a matter of journaling or anything stress relief, because you are taking them through that traumatic event again, and if they go home and they don't have any of those resources, then they can be triggered all over again.
At first, I was upset that I had this label, but I was also happy or relieved, I guess, that it was a real thing.
I was diagnosed with it right off the bat. Like the first time I ever went to a counselor, they were like, yeah, that's definitely what that is, because I mean, flashbacks 24/7, just afraid of everything.
You go to the VA and you say, I want to claim all this kind of stuff. And then after you get out, you go to a doctor and they confirm that you have all that. So technically I wasn't diagnosed until after I got out.
In the beginning, it's always building that relationship because they have to trust you. The client has to make sure that you're providing a safe space for them to explore and go through all of these emotions. Then you make sure that they have those coping skills, so when they leave here, they're able to go through their everyday routines but still have resources so that they can make it through and not have any breakdowns.
I tried everything else to cope with it before I got help. Like, I drank a lot, I got high a lot. In order to cope with what I was dealing with, I turned to like substances, and that wasn't.
The negative coping skills of drinking and doing drugs is that I'm numbing it. I won't have to think about it. I can be passed out, I can sleep. I won't have to live through anything because I'm in this state that keeps me there and keeps me safe. And which is why the addiction becomes easy, because I like the way it feels. I don't have to deal with any of that. So usually when you see people that are having negative smoking, drinking, drugs, eating, is because I have control over this and it numbs it and it makes it feel good, and then I don't have to deal with the bad thing that happened to me.
I haven't touched one in a really long time. Like, I will not touch like drugs again or ever. I will try to deal with my own issues the way that I've learned.
For coping skills, we examine what you enjoy doing. So if someone says, well, I used to love to dance. Well, dancing, exercising, running, all of those, you get the same hormones that come in as if you were taking anti-anxiety or depression medication. So the dopamine and serotonin will start to make you feel good after you've worked out, the same way as if you've taken a pill.
They really just gave me some grounding methods, and just such as like, I'd ask myself questions like, okay, who am I, where am I, what day is it, just to like bring myself back and remind myself that I wasn't wherever my head was taking me. I wasn't where the flashback was.
Grounding yourself is making sure that you're literally grounded. So, for example, your legs are crossed. I would say, okay, we're going to go through a guided imagery right now, but so that you can feel stable, I want both feet on the ground. I want you to sit back in the chair, feel the back of the chair. You might want to keep your arms here or keep your arms here so that you are close to the ground. And then we go through deep breathing, imagining that you're in a safe place, and making sure that you're not sitting Indian style on a chair, because when you take deep breaths and you have your eyes closed, you could feel like you're floating, and then that's not good if you're feeling unstable. So we try to teach you to be on the ground. So feet, arms, back, comfortable, you can feel everything. And then another part of that would be mindfulness. So closing your eyes, listening to every sound, acknowledging that. What do you smell? What do you hear? What do you feel? And getting you to the moment that you're in and not to the future of what you have to do or the past of what you're worried about, but staying in the moment. And it helps your body to regulate and calm down. It also helps you to be able to handle whatever is next.
The specific therapy I went through was called EMDR. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I felt like I was able to really like process through each memory and rethink it with new thoughts about it. And then the symptoms went away. So it took maybe 10 sessions of EMDR to go, like 10-hour-long sessions to go through the process.
So there's two different ways of doing EMDR. One way is actually using the finger and crossing it over the right brain hemisphere. And some people do that, and some people use what's called tappers. And with the tappers is that you hold them in your hand and they're tapping on each side so that you're still crossing both left and right hemispheres of the brain. So, for example, if you look at your hand as your brain, and you look at this as the brainstem is really all a baby has when they're born. So that's why they cry, that's why they startle easily. All they have is that freeze, fight, or flight. And that's right in here. And so you're thinking about emotions, memories, right here in the hippocampus. This part is the frontal cortex, so that's more of cognitive thinking, where little kids can't think that way. They haven't developed to have that yet. So when it's the whole brain, all of this is connected by the bottom of your fingers. When an incident happens and they start to become emotional about it, it opens them up to be exposed. And what happens? They freeze or they run. Sort of like the women that are always exposed in movies, and they just stand there and they get attacked. Well, they're frozen. They don't mean to stand there and get attacked. They're frozen. They don't know what to do because this is wide open. If they can keep this intact, then they can say, I'm in danger, I need to run, and they can think. But we can't think when we're emotional. So what we do is try to replace it opening all the time to closing it. So with the tappers, it connects that emotional, that right side of the brain that's really emotional, that fight or flight, with the left side that's logic that we can't access when we're in a traumatic state. And we go through their traumatic event while either you're, using your finger or using the tappers, and then we replace whatever negative thought that was. I'm not safe, I'm scared, I'm going to be attacked too. I can do this, I have friends, I have resources, or I am safe, I am strong, whatever that positive message is. And then that's when you use the finger or you use the tappers to now connect both of the sides of the brain with, I can do this, I am strong, I am confident, I'm not in danger, I'm safe. And then when they're triggered again, they can go back to, oh, I don't have that feeling anymore because I am safe. And then you reprogram the brain or desensitize.
The group therapy, I didn't like that at all. I don't mind talking about issues that I have and stuff like that, but I feel like one-on-one would be better for me. So I stopped going to that. Not the best choice, but it wasn't doing anything, and it was a lot of gas and a lot of time, so.
Not everybody's ready for group therapy, and so whenever there is a group, it's always good to assess all the members of the group to find out, did this trauma just happen a week ago, or has it been 3 years? If it happened a week ago, then it might be too much for them to be part of that. Then they might have to have some individual counseling first, and then eventually they can be part of a group. And the issue with the groups sometimes is that if they were abused as a child or if they were abused as an adult, their stories are going to be different and they're going to be at different stages. And so sometimes it's open, everybody can come, but I feel that you might have to have a screening process because you don't want to re-traumatize somebody and you don't want to introduce the group to somebody who's not ready. I would say if there are people out there that have experienced a trauma and at the moment they're not going to really know that they have PTSD, they're going to probably look at it as more of I have anxiety or there's something wrong with me or I need to get over this. But if you have any feelings, any fears, you're having a hard time dealing with everyday routine life, finding a counselor that you can trust, that is certified in trauma, that have worked with veterans, that have worked with sexual assault and abuse, to talk to feel safe so they can work through it. So getting out the bed and going to work and having relationships wouldn't be such a hassle and they would be triggered all the time and blaming themselves for it.
So I guess I would say like my PTSD is in remission now. Like I don't have most of the symptoms anymore. Like I still get startled really easily, but it's not as bad. And then now, like I used to think about what happened all the time. Like it would always be on the back of my mind, but now I can go days or weeks without thinking about it.
My advice is don't isolate yourself. Don't think that you're in this alone and that you're the only person that's ever gone through this, because it's so easy to get in that mindset of no one else knows how I feel. And maybe no one else has been in your exact situation, but there are other people around you that deal with it daily that you would have never guessed. And so find friends that you really trust and can be around, and really just try to shift your focus from the negative, because it's so easy to see the negative, and if you don't focus on the positive, that's all you're gonna see. Like it takes effort to shift to that positive perspective. And if you do have a faith, like, super lean on that, and I mean, that's really what's gonna get you through.
The story does need to come out. Like, you can't keep it in, so be gentle and don't judge the victim.
If there's someone in your class and you know they have PTSD, look it up on Google. You know, just Google PTSD and see some of the symptoms. You know, so you know, okay, this might be what happens. That way you're not as surprised. It's not a huge deal if it happens in class. You know, it doesn't embarrass everybody.
Don't think it defines who you are, because it doesn't. It took me a really long time to realize that my past isn't who I am. It's about what I choose to make of my future and what I choose to make of my now. While yes, those memories will haunt you for pretty much the rest of your life, you do have the option to let them. You do have the option to let them affect your personal life, your career, every aspect of your life.